Hey, we're live. Hi, everyone.
Yeah.
Welcome to another episode of Coaching Conversation. I am here today with my very good friend Ryan, and we are going to talk about chasing safety in your career. But before we do that, let's click this so that you can see our names. Ryan, why don't you introduce yourself again and tell us a little bit about you?
Thanks, Todd. Happy to be here. My name's Ryan, pronounced she, her. I am a life and performance coach. I've worked in education, in ed tech, and I also compete in ice climbing. So I really like to coach around people that have either like been really deep in their head and have navigated their career in that way, or are also an athlete looking to increase their performance or think about new ways to relate to things like achievement or competing under pressure.
Wow, that sounds like that sounds like a lot of us. Although competing under pressure within the context of professional sports, like, and I just want to make sure that everyone knows too. When Ryan says, she's into ice climbing, like she's on the national team and competes in on the international stage. So it's like, this is a big deal, and you're really, really, really good at what you do, and I love that I get to say that because you didn't.
I appreciate you. Thank you. Yeah, competing
All
under
right.
pressure in all aspects of life, whether at a startup, ice climbing,
Yeah,
it's my favorite.
that's awesome.
That's why we're talking
Well,
about
and
safety.
and and you know what? Well, and I think that's a really interesting segue because as we think of our topic today, um, and not just safety in your career, but chasing safety within the context of your career. Like there's a lot that's swirling in this space, but like what's most important to you when you think of chasing safety in your career?
I mean, for most of my career, I would say that safety to me looked like financial security. It looked
Mhm.
like kind of the stereotypical, like moving up into the right in my career, right? Like moving up in title, moving up in pay, feeling like I was doing really meaningful work that contributed to society and was continuing to grow, was continuing to be elevated, promoted. And I think planning played a big part in that. I felt like if I just doubled down, worked really hard, and planned everything, that I would get the result at the top of the mountain that was supposed to happen that
Yeah,
way.
it's supposed to. Yeah.
Yeah.
And that's related to the last time we had one of these conversations where we talked about, under planning and being underprepared and how that can be a gift. But I think what's so interesting here, is, you mentioned that chasing safety for you usually meant chasing financial safety,
Mhm.
and I can say the same thing. My story is that I up and to the right is a good way to put it. The career trajectory was always very good, and I'll say that when I was younger, it was easier too, and that might have just been because I was in tech, and it was I'm dating myself, but it was prior to Y2K, so getting jobs within the tech industry, especially in project management, was really easy because everyone really wanted something. It was like the Silicon Valley tech bursting bubble thing.
Mhm.
Um, so so yeah, chasing the money was always something that made sense, and that's what safety meant to me. You had said though making a meaningful impact, and I can't say that that was part of what chasing safety meant for me.
Mhm.
Like, and I'm a little ashamed to admit that, but it's true. The chasing safety for me meant, am I going to make more money in this job than I did in the last one? And and if I'm not going to, then why in the world would I do it? Because this is about securing, financial safety for me, for my family, for, whoever it is that's reliant on that. And I sacrificed a lot of. I realize now that I sacrificed safety in other aspects of my life by chasing financial security, or what I thought was financial security.
Can I
And
ask, like, what aspects you noticed yourself sacrificing there?
my mental health, for sure,
Mm.
for sure. Absolutely. Because I would find myself in, and I would um, uh, tolerate toxic work environments, because not being in the toxic work environment seemed like sacrificing financial security.
Mm.
And the thing is I know lots and lots of people who do that. Like, I know people in leadership who do that. I know people in middle management who do that. I know people who are individual contributors who do that. And and I also know that it sometimes doesn't feel like a choice, depending on what your situation is. And we talked a little bit about that before the cameras started rolling. So I do you want me to go there, or would you like to tee that one up?
Yeah, no, dive right in. I
Dive in.
appreciate it.
Okay, because what it seems to me, when we sort of think of safety and actually, you know what? I'm going to tell the story that I told before the camera started rolling, because there's this coaching question that I love, and I ask it a lot. And if you're one of my clients or have been one of my clients, then you've probably heard me say it. And I can't even take credit for it, because it's my coach who asked me this question the first time. Um, and it goes like this: if you had unlimited time, talent, and resource, what would you do? It's a great question, right? Open things up. But the first time I was asked that question, I got unimaginably angry, because
Mm.
what I thought was, but I don't have unlimited time, talent, and resource. How in the world is that a useful question to me? And that's and that was because of how I perceived my perspective, particularly financial perspective, within that context. And I also understand that my situation, I don't have kids, is different than others, right? I don't have kids. I'm a late middle-aged white dude. I've had a career that has included, making decent money. I've saved money. So I have resources. I have things available to me that other people don't. And I understand that. So my lived experience and someone else's lived experience, yours, another client's, whatever, is going to be different. So chasing safety is going to mean different things for different people. And I think, what we're getting at right now is less about, what does safety look like externally? Like, what does it look like when I try to see it from the outside, versus what's the safety that I'm creating within myself, and how do I trust myself to navigate the things that are going to come up, whatever those things happen to be. Is that right?
Yeah. Yeah. No, I mean, I think what you're saying is super important and powerful. Like, there definitely are things that I want to name, like having security and needing financial security for your life, or having flexibility for your lifestyle and the different things you need to support your family or yourself. Those are important. And we're not saying, like, don't look for that sort of thing. Like, just do what
Sure.
feels right, or do what is most meaningful, or whatever. It's
Mm-hmm.
more like, how do you define safety? And, like, are you clear on how that is something that, like, comes from internal mindsets, and is it serving you? Like, just being really conscious about, what am I looking for? Why is that? And does that actually serve me? Or is some of that just conditioning? Like, I think for
Mm-hmm.
me, this kind of up and to the right idea, what I did was I kind of gave my power to external environments. I was like, oh, I'm going to show up, and this job is going to help me make my life look like XYZ. And then,
Mm-hmm.
like, in the post that I shared, if anyone saw, like, my very first job out of college, I got laid off. And it was a 2-year, like, service oriented commitment. And I got laid off a year in. Like, that doesn't usually happen. And I was like,
Wow.
what? This is not how this is supposed to go. But I kind of saw it as a fluke, because I was putting all of this weight externally. And so then I just kind of doubled down, and I kept working harder, and I kept looking for, like, the right job or the right circumstance or the right answer. Like, it kind of leaned
Mm-hmm.
into that planning of, like, it will be safe if I plan it. It will be safe if I, like, find an environment that meets these criteria. And I didn't even realize how some of those criteria were things I had chosen or conditioned myself to have. And by doing that, I actually didn't really handle the layoff that well because so much of the like value or worth I had already placed on the environment itself. I didn't place it
Hmm.
on like trusting myself to have a sense of security and safety, to be able to navigate that, to be able to show up and say, wow, I didn't get the result I wanted. Like, how can I reassess? What is it that I actually want? How do I create that for myself? Whether that's like applying to the same sort of jobs or considering alternatives. I was so narrowly focused on this limited definition of safety
Hmm.
that I didn't see where I had choice.
Mm. I didn't see where I had choice. Like that's, I think that's a situation that I think a lot of us find ourselves in. Um, yeah, again, before when we were talking before the camera started rolling, the one of the observations that I made was this feels like we're talking about anxiety again, um, and uh, fear responses, um, and how we don't necessarily show up as our best and most resourceful selves when we're in sort of that space of fear response. And I guess the question that pops up for me is what changed? What changed for you?
Probably a decade and another layoff. But actually, I think like what was really fascinating to me is the second time I got laid off, I think there were a lot of parts of my life that I didn't feel as satisfied with.
Hmm.
And it was very easy to blame the circumstances, the environment, the culture, whatever of the job I had been at most recently. Like, oh, well, that was just because of how things were done here. And it was things like I felt really busy. I felt like I was having a really chaotic life experience. My time was always very full. I was always very overwhelmed. I was always feeling very stressed. And for a period of time after I was laid off, I felt, I didn't have that. It was more peaceful. My time was very open. And then, shocker, 2 months later, I noticed, oh, wow, I'm having a very similar experience to what I had had when I was at my company. And obviously, it's not exactly the same, but my time
Hmm.
is still very full. I'm experiencing stress and overwhelm. I'm experiencing anxiety. I'm feeling stretched thin. I wasn't even working at a different job. And it helped me really notice where so much of my experience was actually internally driven, but I
Mm.
just had placed so much value, so many answers, so much security on my external environment that I didn't, it was easier to then blame the external environment when things weren't going wrong. And I wasn't
Hmm.
actually pausing to be like, oh, what mindsets do I have about like my worth that make me feel like I need to fill my time to feel like I'm doing it right? Or like, I need to be approaching applying to jobs in a specific way that drives both overwhelm, but also makes me feel like, well, look what I've accomplished. Like
Hmm.
there was so much that I was creating because of my internal mindsets, but I wasn't trusting myself to be able to navigate that or to even I think like what I really noticed is that when I don't even slow down to notice what is going on in my own mind about like what I've defined as successful or to see where I am actually making conscious choices to keep saying yes to things. I don't realize that I am in almost this it kind of feels like I'm creating a jail cell for myself that I've constructed myself. And until I can actually like step back and see that, I don't see other alternatives. It just feels like the world that I live in. And so I
Mm.
started to get more reflective and try and develop a more of an awareness of how I was showing up, what kind of energy I was bringing, where I was placing my focus. And that helped me notice, like, oh, I have a lot more choice than I realize.
Hmm.
And I can choose to put that energy and those like intentions into different parts of my career, and I can create different things. Like I can create financial security in a certain way, or I can create more meaning and values and mission. But
Hmm.
when I don't even get a chance to see those options or what I'm choosing, it just feels like everything is a priority. And like I just have to
Hmm.
kind of push through. I'm not sure,
Yeah,
yeah, if
and
that
but
resonates at all with your
that
experience.
really resonates. That really resonates, and I hear it coming up over and over and over again. I just have to push through. Like I just have to get this done. I just have to do it. And once I do it, then I will experience satisfaction, safety, whatever. Like, I will
Yeah.
relax. I'll breathe when I'm on the other
Hmm.
side.
Hmm.
And the thing is, you get to the other side and there's something else that prevents you from breathing. And you never get to breathe. And eventually you run out of oxygen.
Hmm.
And it's, yeah, it's so I'm going to play with something because I love metaphors, and it's a metaphor that's popping into my head, and
Great.
maybe you can tell me if this is right or wrong, but because I've never been ice climbing, so I'm going to use an ice climbing metaphor.
Love it. I'm excited where this is going.
But well, so when I think of safety within the
Mhm.
context of an activity like ice climbing, right? It seems to me that the analogy would be like in the way that we've described safety so far, how safety often shows up. An analogy would be um, safety in ice climbing would mean knowing precisely where all of the nooks and crannies on that ice wall are, exactly what it looks like, so that I know exactly what to do every single time in every single situation. And I think what I'm hearing is no, it's actually knowing what to do once I get there because I've got the skills.
Yeah, I think that makes a lot of sense. And I think it ties into our planning conversation because I did see it as the first definition for a very long time for my
Uh-huh.
career, for my personal life. Like, if I've planned it all, if I can see all of the possible things that could go wrong, I can engineer the uncertainty out of that. And that
Mm-hmm.
means I'm more likely to get to the end result I want. And I don't make room for unexpected things, or I find unexpected things to be incredibly irritating, or it did for
Mm-hmm.
much of my career. Like,
Mm-hmm.
it in some ways is kind of an illusion to feel like, oh, I have this job, I'm going to stay here forever. That was my goal. I'm going to find a company I like,
Mm-hmm.
I'm never leaving. And like, layoffs happen, things shift, like, or maybe your job shifts and you're not as happy several years down the line. And so I think it's also like responding to what shows up and to like slow down and pay attention to your intuition and like your own internal information and data of like, am I still happy? And does this feel like it's still serving me for where I am? Like I'm still
Mm-hmm.
growing and shifting. I mean,
Mm-hmm.
an example with ice climbing, yeah, to your point, I could do that. I could memorize every hold. I could know exactly how I put my pick on the wall. And yes, that would eliminate some of the uncertainty. That could support me in making things
Mm-hmm.
more safe and secure. And last year, I took a fall that I've taken many times before. I hit very slightly differently. I knocked two of my teeth out. Like,
Mm.
that sucked. And like, yes, I was doing a risky sport. That is a choice I was making. That can happen. But my initial reaction was like, oh, let me overanalyze how I could have done this slightly differently and how I could have overplanned this and how I could have like shit. And it was like all based on the mindset of if I plan it perfectly, I will get the result I want. And like, that's just not the reality of life. And so what it had to be about was more, okay, what can I do now? What are my options? Like,
Mm-hmm.
what do I need to move forward? What is the thing that's going to serve me most? Like, do I want to keep doing this? Do
Yeah.
I want to not? How do I want to support my health? Like, so it was responding to what was there in a way that also trusted me to handle it.
Yeah. The as you said the words, what can I do now? Like I just something,
Yeah, we
my
only have this
spine
moment.
straightened. Right. Everything happens
That
in the
sounds so
present.
cliche.
I know, right? But like
that was not the
like
best
if you're
phrase to
gonna
use,
do
but
something, that's where it has to be done
it's
is in the
about
moment.
what you have as information from like your
Right.
intuition, from your like life circumstance. Like that might mean that yes, money
Hmm.
or flexibility or health insurance or whatever is the priority, and you need to
Right.
make trade-offs in service of that. But it's about like being conscious and intentional and knowing that's what you're doing and that's what you want to be doing, not just doing it because it's how you've always done it or it's
Hmm.
because it's how you perceive you're going to get a specific end result that may or may not happen.
Hmm. Yeah, and I think that's what I love about it because I have choices that I need to make because of my circumstances to to engineer safety into my career, whatever that means, and whatever that means for me or for you or for anyone else. And it doesn't necessarily need to turn into your identity
Mm.
within that context. And I think that's the thing that I'm also that maybe we're not saying that I'm also hearing is um, in I know that in both of our cases, like the propensity to be over planners, it was certainly part of my identity. I think it was part of yours.
Yeah.
The propensity to choose, um, up and to the right, but also, less risky choices that are up and to the right. I know that I can do this. I know that I can be successful, whatever that means. Um, Without risking the financial security that goes along with
Mm-hmm.
with it. Um, and that became, for me anyway, part of who I was. So someone asked
Mm.
me, who am I? I was, well, I have a corporate job. I'm in leadership. Whatever it happened to be, whatever my title was at the time. And I know when that wasn't true anymore, I struggled
Mm.
because, well, who am I? Like, who am I even? And as you were talking about unforeseen circumstances and things that pop up within the context of career, I'm remembering a conversation that I had with someone at a company where I worked, and it was a very old company that had been around for a very long time, which means that it had employees that had been there for a very long time, and this person had been at their job for 25 years and
Mm.
was part of a round of layoffs, and they were inconsolable because you know I have devoted so much time and effort into this thing which was supposed to deliver safety and security, and now it hasn't. And I think there's, like, the word that's popping up for me is resilience, and I don't like that word because like when people say, oh, you need to develop resilience, it often turns into, you need to develop resilience to navigate a world which is inherently unfair, but then we don't actually talk about creating fairness or creating equity. But I think that in this case, it's developing resilience so that you're not caught off guard, because there are things that are going to happen. There are things you can't predict. Maybe you're going to fall and knock your teeth out. Maybe you're going to, right, maybe like maybe you're going to be laid off after you've worked at a company for 25 years. And what does safety look like within the context of some of those possibilities, without spinning out of control and then becoming worried about things that haven't happened yet,
Mm.
because
Mm-hmm.
that's also a possibility, I think, within the context of what we're talking about.
Yeah.
Hmm.
And then I think to your point, like some of those fears can really create a lot of other trade-offs that I know I wasn't even aware of most of the time. Like for a while after I was initially laid off, I did get a different teaching job. I
Hmm.
found success there. I had been a teacher for 6 years,
Hmm.
and there was security there in terms of how I defined it. I was able to move up and be a department chair, and I just didn't feel satisfied. I
Hmm.
really had other ways that I felt I was kind of squashing my needs, my
Hmm.
desires, my aspirations for my own life in different areas,
Hmm.
different parts of my personal life. But I just kind of saw that as like, oh, that's the cost of creating this security. And in some ways, it was the cost of
Yeah.
my own defined security. But
Hmm.
it didn't feel like a choice then because I was like, well, I want security. I just have to do this. And I didn't
Right.
step back to think about are there different ways I can adjust this? What other choices do I have within this job? What other
Mhm.
choices do I have in this industry? Like just getting more clear on, are there things I want to shift? Like what is in
Mhm.
my power here? And like, what are the trade-offs? Are they worth it?
Mhm. Wow. What's Oh, this is a terrible question. I'm going to ask it anyway. Like, if you had one piece of
Okay.
advice, like if you had one piece of advice, because I'm looking at the time, right? We got like what 5 minutes left,
Mm-hmm.
and if you had one piece of advice, like the folks who are listening right now, and who I'm making up are probably here because they've experienced that desire to chase safety within the context of their career. What's the thing that you really want them to have?
Gosh, one piece of advice. Not a shocking question, but um, I mean, I think to what we talked about of like we grow and evolve as humans over time,
Mhm.
and what worked for you or me or the next person, like yesterday, 5 years ago, may not work anymore, and that's okay, and that doesn't make you a failure. And like also, I didn't say this, but like if you get laid off, like that is a big shift. And like that is something that you are
Yeah.
totally like it can involve grieving. And like I'm not trying to say like shut down feelings, like process it in a way that's meaningful for you. And
Mhm.
also get curious about like what do you need? What do you want? And like
Mm.
what does your intuition also tell you? Like are you getting
Yeah.
kind of information from all different dimensions of like analytically, like what do I need to survive and to take care of my family or to be able to live my life in the way that I want? And also, like, do I have any gut feelings that are concerning about, I don't know, the job I'm in or jobs I'm applying to, and seeing those as valuable data points too, and just making sure that you're making a conscious choice with
Mhm.
all of that information and not just out of fear or because you are hoping that this opportunity will result in a certain kind of outcome or finish line that
Mhm.
may or may not be as certain as we
Yeah.
want it to be.
Yeah. I'm hearing I'm hearing a lot about inner wisdom. I'm hearing a lot about trusting ourselves, and we're so, I don't know if maybe this is peculiarly North American or maybe it's Euro North American. I don't know, but like I think we're so ingrained to look for knowledge and information from the outside,
Mm.
and we're just not trained to trust what we already know, and decades of lived experience is wisdom. It's truth. And I love what you're saying, because what I'm hearing is safety starts inside. Understand what that means here. Don't make assumptions based on what other people have said.
Yeah.
I love it whenever anyone says get curious, because that's like, it's one of my favorite words.
Yeah.
Oh my goodness. That's awesome. Ryan, we're at the end of our conversation.
Thank you for this space.
Thank you for this space. So, listen, for the folks that are listening, Ryan, if someone wants to get a hold of you, what should they do?
My LinkedIn is a great way to reach out.
Hmm.
So I believe that should be linked here.
Awesome. Yep, it absolutely is. And same thing. If you want to reach out to me, you can reach out on LinkedIn, or on YouTube. This is the first time this one's on YouTube, so I'm excited about that too. Or my website is www.toddcarcass.com. And Ryan, I love spending time with you. Thank you so much for doing another one of these with me. And I hope that we get to do more in the future.
Thank you for
You're
the
awesome.
opportunity. And thank you for everyone that tuned in today. Hopefully, there were aspects of this that resonated and that you found some value to take away.
Absolutely. Yeah. And till next time. Okay. Bye, everyone.
Bye.